All right, when you think about business risk, what comes to mind? Probably things like a cyber attack, right? Or maybe a big supply chain delay. We tend to see these as separate, isolated threats. But what if the real danger isn't the individual problems, but the invisible web that connects them all? That's what we're digging into today, this hidden system of risks that can trip up even the smartest companies out there. So let me just ask you straight up, what's the biggest threat to your business? Like right now? Is it the economy? Is it your competitors? Maybe it's finding good people. Whatever just popped into your head, I want you to just hold on to that thought for a second. Because here's the thing, whatever that threat is you're picturing, the reality is it's almost never just one thing. You know, the old way of doing things, tackling risks one at a time, putting them in their own little boxes, that playbook, it's completely out of date. See, the real danger, the thing that can genuinely knock a company off its feet, is hiding in the connections between all those problems that look separate on the surface. And that's exactly what we're going to untangle right now. Okay, so to really see this web in action, let's start with something that, well, pretty much every leader is dealing with right now. Their people. And trust me, managing a workforce today is a whole lot more than just an HR issue. Just look at this number, 19%. So what is that? Well, according to Mercer, that's the estimated global employee turnover for this year. Think about that. Nearly 1 in 5 of your people might just get up and walk out the door. The big question is, why? This isn't just some HR headache, you guys. This is the first thread we're going to pull on in this much, much bigger web. And it's not just about people leaving either. I mean, look at the top worries for leaders today. You've got everything from attracting talent to just flat-out employee burnout. You start to see a pattern, right? And what's absolutely crucial to get is that these aren't HR problems anymore. No way. They've moved right to the center of the table. They're core business risks that touch, well, pretty much everything. You know, there's this quote from Marsh that just hits the nail on the head. The people who power any company are its most critical asset. And it's so true. If that asset, your people, is at risk, then your whole organization is at risk. Simple as that. But that brings up a really important question, and it's what's going to lead us to the next big idea here. Is this whole people problem really its own separate thing? Or is it just a symptom of something way bigger, a whole interconnected system of threats? So, okay, let's pull on that thread. Let's actually see how this people problem gets tangled up in a much, much bigger web of risks you might not even be thinking about. All right, let's take a wildfire, for example. For decades, right? A business would look at something like that and just file it under property risk. The only question was, did our building burn down? If the answer was no, it was like, okay, whew, we're fine. It was a totally one-dimensional problem. But now, we know that a wildfire kicks up smoke and creates awful air quality that can affect your employees hundreds of miles away. And just like that, what was a property risk is now a health risk. It's directly impacting your people. And it doesn't stop there. Then the roads close. Transportation just grinds to a halt. So now it's also a supply chain risk, throwing a wrench in your entire operation. And finally, this is where it all comes full circle. Your own employees are now dealing with the stress of maybe having to evacuate, worried about their health, their lives are totally disrupted. So that one ecological event, it's now fueling burnout and mental health issues. It has officially become a people risk. And honestly, you see this interconnectedness everywhere. These things aren't separate issues. For example, think about a tech skills shortage. That directly makes you more vulnerable to a cyber attack, right? Well, that pressure contributes to employee burnout. And what happens when people are burned out? They're more likely to make security mistakes. It's this vicious cycle, this feedback loop. It's a web where pulling on just one thread makes the whole thing tighter. So, if everything is connected like this, how on earth is a leader supposed to manage this tangled mess? Well, it takes a totally new mindset. It's about seeing the whole playing field differently. It requires thinking in what's called strategic risk. Now, strategic risk isn't about the little day-to-day slip-ups. No, it's the big picture stuff. It's the risk that the fundamental choices you're making as a leader, your business model, your strategy, are just plain wrong because the world changed around you and you didn't see how it all connected. Here's maybe the easiest way to think about it. You've got operational risk, which is all about execution, basically failing to do things right. But then you have strategic risk, and that's all about direction, failing to do the right things in the first place. So the real question is, are you just climbing your ladder really, really fast, or have you checked to make sure your ladder is leaning against the right wall? And here's the kicker.
Managing this new reality, it's not just good business advice. For a company's board, for its senior leaders, it is a core fiduciary duty. We're talking about a fundamental legal and ethical obligation here. And it really boils down to two key ideas. First, there's the duty of care. That just means leaders have to be informed. You can't just claim ignorance anymore and say, oh, I didn't know a wildfire over there could affect our cybersecurity over here. And second is the duty of loyalty. That means you have to act in the company's best interest for the long haul, not just to make this quarter's numbers look good. Okay, so after all of this, what's the bottom line? In this ridiculously complex world we're in, what is the one big takeaway for any leader watching this? Well, this quote just sums up the sheer scale of the challenge perfectly. We are in an incredibly complex operating environment, unlike anything organizations have experienced in decades. It's a whole new ballgame. The old ways of thinking, they just won't cut it anymore. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important point. To get through all this complexity, leaders need to completely change the question they ask themselves whenever a new problem lands on their desk. Our first instinct, right, is always to ask, how do we solve this problem? That's the classic put out the fire approach. But the thing is, that approach completely misses the bigger picture. The better question, the much more powerful question, is this. What is this problem connected to? Because when you ask that, you force yourself to see the whole web. You stop just managing the symptoms and you start managing the system. And in the world we live in today, that is the only way you're going to build a truly resilient organization.